and it's showing no signs of slowing down.
So that figure there, 2.6
That is an awful lot.
I mean, it's not just an awful lot, it is a record now for Premier League spending in a summer transfer window. It eclipses, I think, 2023 when it was around £2.46 billion.
So that must be in all windows, because surely the summer's big.
Yes, sorry, yeah, in all windows, yeah. So this is officially a record, and it's beaten the previous record by over £100 million. And that £100 million, once upon a time, in itself was a massive spend in a transfer window. But now you're looking at huge spends in the Premier League, and this has been a growing trend as well. And I think it's kind of revisited since COVID, because we had that time during the COVID years where it was really, really difficult for clubs to spend. They were cutting their cloth accordingly. And if you look at it now, look at these figures here, that £2.6 billion spent by Premier League clubs. The net spend, though, is £716 million. So from that, you can actually see that they are getting a lot of that money back as well. So they're selling really, really well. And we've used those two examples, Liverpool and Chelsea, two of the best sellers in this transfer
Do we need
window.
to make more of that actually clubs are, because we talk about, they spent this much and that much, but actually they're recouping money.
The Premier League would like us to make a lot more of that.
We should.
They think it's a little bit misleading when we put up £2.6 billion, because the net spend is what matches. There's always going to be a trading in and out. And actually, if you work that out, £716 million, on average, you spread that over 20 clubs, that's only about £35 million per club in this window. That doesn't sound a heck of a lot of money still, but in the terms of revenues that these clubs are earning, that's not quite so huge. But it's clear the Premier League has much more spending power than any other league in the world.
And that figure...
Newcastle clearly not letting this one go, but the way it's been explained to me from a Newcastle perspective is, say they accept an offer from Liverpool for £120 million. Let's just go with that hypothesis over the next few days. If they spend 60, 70 million pounds on Strand Larsen, and then they spend 40, 50 million pounds on Yoane Wissa at Brentford, they've blown that 120 million pounds. And this time last season, they had Callum Wilson, albeit with some injury problems, an England striker, hugely experienced, scored goals for fun in the Premier League, and Alexander Isak, who's one of the world's best strikers, proved he can do it in the Premier League. And if you're replacing both of those without any extra money for Strand Larsen and for Wissa, that doesn't sound like a great deal for me. So that's why I understand Newcastle are trying to be prudent about this. They're in a very difficult situation, but they're not going to blow the budget on players that they don't think are worth it. Simple as that.
I think they're being very careful as well. If you go back to when the statements came out from Alexander Isak and then from Newcastle United. Alexander Isak, we know, promises were made and they've been reneged upon. Newcastle United denied that. But the important part of Newcastle United's statement was that the conditions and the terms of a deal for Alexander Isak have not been met. So while we were saying not for sale, by saying the conditions and the terms have not been met, by definition, there are conditions and terms for Alexander Isak to be sold. And those are the price, number one, and also bringing in replacements.
Is Strand Larsen the replacement for Isak?
Well, it's been almost painted as he's going to be a replacement for Callum Wilson. But I think Newcastle United have got to be careful here as well. If that is clearly the case, that it is going to be Callum Wilson, it's almost sending a message to Liverpool as well. No, we haven't got a replacement for Alexander Isak, so we still want this amount of money if you want to come and buy him. Whereas if it was put out there, right, Jurgen Strand Larsen, he's the replacement for Alexander Isak, we can now sell him, Liverpool will say, well, you got your replacement, we don't need to pay £150 million. It should also be said, Newcastle United in that statement said, we don't expect those conditions to be met. On both fronts. One, is it about the replacements? But two, probably more significantly, they probably don't expect the conditions for Liverpool to pay what they want. But is that almost a thinly veiled invitation to Liverpool? It's £110 million you've bid. That's not enough. Come back with what we want and maybe we can do business.
And a quick word on Eddie Howe here. I mean, Darmish is quite right. The people I'm speaking to are using those terms as well. A replacement for Callum Wilson, a replacement for Alexander Isak. And they have to categorise which striker they're going for. Eddie Howe doesn't give a monkeys about that. He wants two strikers in that can do a job for him in the Premier League. He's not going to have two strikers in and go, right, you're my main man, So I'm prepared to pay more money for you. And you're my second striker. It doesn't work like that. He wants two strikers that are going to compete for a starting berth, who can take and compete with Newcastle in the Premier League at the top end and the Champions League. They've had an extraordinary couple of seasons, Newcastle. They deserve to be celebrating where they are now, spending some of the riches that they've got and planning to really go at it in the Champions League. Instead, they're in a mess because of the Alexander Isak situation.
Right.
A lot of people say that's Alexander Isak's fault.
Two questions, one for each of you. For you, Rob, is Alexander Isak going to be playing for Newcastle come the end of the window? And for you, Dharmesh, is Johan Wissa going to be playing for Newcastle come the end of the window? Rob?
I don't see any way that Alexander Isak will still be a Newcastle player by September the 2nd. I think it's an impossible situation for Newcastle. I understand why the fans are desperate for him to stay. More and more Newcastle fans that we hear from are turning against him now because of the way he's behaved in this matter. And look, in this scenario, I've looked at some of the precedents. Then players get their move. They don't always get it in this window, but in the long term, they'll get their move. And I think Newcastle are over a barrel and they've got no choice. I think Liverpool are playing this very, very smart. They've been absolutely silent. No briefing from the club. We haven't heard a single thing. They've thrown their grenade in, £110 million, and they've just sat there while Alexander Isak has done their work for them. I think it's been very smart from Liverpool. I think their patience will pay off. I think they'll get their man before the end of this window.
Dharmesh, Wissa.
This deal and the Isak deal, they just kind of feel like a complicated house purchase. So just say you like a house, but to get the house, there's a chain of about 3 other people that need to buy their own house before you can buy your one. Now, Isak, we've explained about the replacement situation. Johan Wissa is playing the waiting game. He wants to go to Newcastle United. Newcastle United want him. However, Brentford are only going to let him go if they find a replacement. Now, initially, I think Newcastle United might have thought Dango Ouattara's come in. So now we can go full speed ahead for Johan Wissa. But what ended up happening was that Ouattara deal was effectively a replacement for Brian Mbeumo, who'd gone to Manchester United. Now, publicly, the Brentford head coach, Keith Andrews, has been consistent. We want Johan Wissa to stay. We actually expect Johan Wissa to stay beyond deadline day. However, at the same time, when these are the public utterances from Brentford, they are behind the scenes looking for a replacement for Johan Wissa, because for all parties, rather like the Isak situation, it's probably best that Johan Wissa goes, Brentford get the money they need, they get the replacement they want, and Wissa gets the move that he wants, because he doesn't want to be at Brentford. He's already said, I don't intend to play for them again. I just think that if you look at the Isak statement, and if you look at how Wissa has approached his saga, it's almost like they're signs of desperation, because Alexander Isak, I think it was with 12 days to go of the window when he put out his statement, and it was basically thinking, I've now got 12 days to have any kind of influence that I can, because come 7 p.m. on Monday, I have no further say. Because if I haven't got the move, I'm stuck. And then there's a whole new ball game at play. Can he get reintegrated into the squad? Is he going to maintain the stance of, I don't want to be reintegrated, I don't want to play for you again?
Manchester United's EFL Cup clash against Grimsby Town turned into a roller coaster of emotions that no fan saw coming. From the very first whistle, disaster struck for the Red Devils. Grimsby, a League Two side, stormed into a 2-goal lead, and the nightmare deepened when Andre Onana's shocking error gifted the second goal. The United goalkeeper failed to clear the ball, leaving fans stunned and the stadium echoing with boos. United looked broken, their attack lifeless and defenders frustrated as Ruben Amorim desperately barked orders from the touchline. Was this going to be another embarrassing exit? Then came a spark of hope. In the second half, United finally woke up. A brilliant move down the right saw Kobbie Mainoo whip in a low cross for Brian Mbeumo, who calmly slotted home. Suddenly, the energy shifted. Fans roared, and the players believed again. United pushed relentlessly, and just when all hope seemed lost, Captain Harry Maguire rose to the occasion. In the dying moments, his goal leveled the score, sending the away end into absolute chaos. But football can be cruel. After 120 minutes of drama, the fate of Giants lay in a penalty shootout, and heartbreak followed. An epic 12-11 shootout saw Grimsby shock the world, dumping Manchester United out of the EFL Cup.